State's motion has 52.
Your Honor, I'm gonna, let Ms. Cross, respond, but I did want to bring something to the court's attention, and I don't think she knew, but, and I don't think it matters, but I'll bring it to the court's attention anyway. She used to work for, her cousin used to work for me when I was a solicitor, and I recognize the first name Iris on that side. Again, she didn't say she knew me, or she didn't know what office her cousin worked in, but just out of an abundance of caution and just as an officer of the court, want the court to know that. So,
Before I ask on qualification, any other further inquiry about that?
No, sir. I think that does not disqualify her, and I guess we just need to wait and find out what her work policy is. We have no motions or anything like that.
Is she still qualified for the state?
Yes, sir.
Right now, she is still qualified? That happens? Yes. Number 55.
Juror 55. Let me start by following up with one of the questions you raised your hand to this afternoon. Okay, I think you told us that either a close friend or family member that you know suffers from a mental illness. Is that correct? Is the person diagnosed with a mental illness? What's the
Bipolar disorder.
bipolar? How close are you to this individual? Significantly. So have you had an opportunity to observe any of, I guess, the symptoms and behaviors that are associated with the disorder? And how would you characterize them? Would you say that they are continuous or sporadic?
Well, they're medicated, so they're low.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to observe prior to the person being medicated? Okay. And would you be able to characterize the behavior at that point? Was it something that was continuous or was it sporadic?
It was sporadic.
All right. I'd also like to ask you a few follow-up questions from your questionnaire. And I'm going to just go ahead and start with the one where you told us that you are currently in the process of divorcing. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when you say in the process, complaints been filed and you are...
I have paperwork in my bag, you know.
Okay. Anything about the fact that you're currently in that process you think might affect you if you had to serve as a juror on a case for 2-3 weeks? Okay. Other thing I wanted to ask you dealt with the fact that you told us you knew someone who worked in law enforcement.
Yes.
Who is that and where do they work?
Ross.
You know Judge Ross?
Yes.
Okay, how do you know Judge Ross?
We were in a mommy group together.
You ever talk to Judge Ross about her work?
No.
And anything about the fact that you know her or your relationship with her you think might affect your ability to listen to evidence if you're selected as a juror and evaluate that evidence fairly and impartially? You said you're not really familiar with this case.
I don't watch a lot of television.
Okay. Are you somewhat familiar with it at all? Have you heard anything?
Vaguely.
Tell us what you have heard.
I know a man was killed several years ago. I got a big here and that's pretty much it.
Okay. And based on the information that you have heard, have you formed any opinions one way or another about the case? Anything about what you know or think you know about the case you think might impact you if you were selected to serve as a juror on the case? I think you also told us that you have 3 school-age children and you are a stay-at-home mom. And you're currently separated, so your husband's not in the home at the moment. Would he be able to care for the children during the day if you were selected to?
Probably not, to travel a lot.
Okay. Would you be able to find or make arrangements for childcare for a 2-3 week period if you were selected?
That would be difficult.
And well, I appreciate difficult. I need to know if it's impossible.
leaving my children with strangers, and my babysitters are college students that will be returning to school, so right now it's an impossibility.
It's an impossibility. Okay, no neighbors or
No,
family
they are
members?
work.
Okay. And you don't know of any college students that you could call on? All right. Thank you.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes, sir. During number 55, I apologize. I was unable to hear one of your answers. I understand you're going through a divorce at this time. Did you move out, or has your husband moved out of the home?
My husband moved out.
Okay, and your mother-in-law lives in the home with you?
Yes,
And will she continue living in the home with you through the process of the divorce?
probably.
Is she able to take care of the 3 kids, the 3
Yeah.
daughters you have?
She works for Fulton County Court.
Okay, so you're a stay-at-home mom full-time then?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions.
All right, you can follow the instructions of the clerk. Thank you very much. State's position.
Your Honor, the juror may potentially qualify for a hardship or child care, but I will note that the children are 12, 9, and 7. Well, I technically don't think she has a hardship. She stated on the record that it's an impossibility. I think she's a qualified juror, but we will leave it within the discretion of the court.
Mr. Morgan, what's the defense position?
Judge, she's a stay-at-home mom. There's no one else in the home to take care of 3 girls, 12, 9, and 7. I certainly don't believe that they should be left alone. Again, I don't think it's a technical hardship. I don't think it's a legal technical hardship, but I would be very uncomfortable leaving her on the jury if she were to be picked with that kind of burden.
All right, Lori, she's not technically qualified, but since she indicates she doesn't work, which is okay, but the breadwinner apparently has moved out, I'm gonna go ahead and grant her a hardship, and she'll be removed for cause. That'll be number 55. 56 should be next. Ms. Hill was looking.
Thank you, Judge. Juror 56. I need to ask you a few follow-up questions. Few questionnaires, that's okay? I think you told us that you were the only person working at the moment,
Yes.
and you wanted to let us know that that could potentially be a problem for you if you were selected.
Yes, ma'am, because I'm just recently getting back to work from an accident previously. And like I said, I was out on injury for about a month and a half. April 22nd to April 22nd, went back to work around June. And right now, I've been subpoenaed to go to court to be a witness from the lady that hit me. You know, she knocked me off my motorcycle. And I'm going through nerve repair for my bottom lip and chin area. So basically, all I'm trying to do is just catch up on bills. I mean, I exhausted my account because of me not working, you know, and taking care of my family.
Do you know what, so where do you work? Let's see, you are a welder and mechanic? Is that
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
And you're currently employed with the truck service?
Yes, L&N truck service, yes, ma'am.
Do you know if they will pay you, if there's a policy about whether or not they'll pay you if you're called for jury
I know
service?
for a fact they're not going to pay me.
They won't?
No, ma'am, because
Okay.
I just started working there about 4 months ago.
Okay. And obviously, if you don't work, you won't get paid?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Mr. Petrie.
Just very briefly on, sir, you, I think you put this on your questionnaire, but I'm not sure you know. You are the sole breadwinner in your family for your wife and 4 children.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
correct.
My 2 sons and my 2 grandkids.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, so follow the instructions of the clerk, please. Take position.
Yes, Judge, we would ask that the juror be excused for cause, for financial hardship. I'll just say for the record, as he was telling me about his financial hardship, he became emotional. Tears well up in his eyes.
Yes, sir, we agree with that.
All right, lawyers, if it's consent, I'll go ahead and move the call. 58 should be next, lawyers.
I have another 57.
We were at 57. 57 should be next.
Yes, ma'am.
Proceed, yes, sir.
So I see that you have, I go to questionnaire, says, is there any reason you can think of that would affect your ability to serve as a fair and impartial juror in this case? And you're talking about inventory from a job and also having some other activities at work. Could you explain that to us and tell us what that is?
It's just basically kind of a situation where I'm pretty much leading inventory in my store.
Yes, sir.
Gapping them, and people really can't do things when I'm not there. It's just a situation like that.
It's just an important job.
It is.
Okay, all right. I also see that there was a situation when I go to question number 30, it says, have you been involved in the court system in any way? And it's talking about a case that you had. You indicated that you were treated fairly. Okay. How old were you when you went through that? 17. Was it here in DeKalb County?
Yes.
All right. Do you know if it was in the solicitor's office or the DA's office?
I can't.
You can't remember?
I can't recall.
All right. You've also had some exposure to publicity in this case as well, is that correct? You've seen or read or heard something?
I've just seen the trucks here.
Okay. I am looking at question number 50, and it's asking about publicity. It says, are you familiar with this case due to media coverage or otherwise? And it says, yes, just seen it on the news and followed the case somewhat, at least to see if the guy was guilty. Okay, tell us about that. I assume you're talking about the last trial. Did you follow that trial?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, I followed just basically towards the end, just to see what the end of it would be.
What was going to happen?
Yeah.
When you say towards the end, because it was a long trial, did you watch a week of it, a day of it, the verdict?
Probably basically just the verdict.
Just the verdict?
Yeah.
Okay, do you remember having any particular reaction to the verdict in the last trial? Okay, all right. You have on question number 51 a very sad situation. Is there anything about, I guess, watching the verdict or any portion of the last trial that would affect your ability to sit as a fair and impartial juror in this case?
Not really.
Okay. You can set the fact that you think it was a sad situation or whatever you may have seen in the last trial, verdict included, aside, and listen to the instruction of the court when the court tells you to, look at the evidence fairly. You can do that? Okay. Mental illness. There's someone that you know who's close to you that suffers from mental illness?
Really, it's my wife's niece, so it's not really genetic, but I do. So
Okay. Do you know what type of mental illness it is?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Have you been around enough to see any of the things that she does, like the symptoms?
Not really.
Okay. You just know she has a mental illness?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is it a child or an adult?
Chat.
Okay. Just a second. Thank you.
One second, Mr. Clay.
Very quickly. So you have been involved in coaching one of your children's sports teams, is that correct? What is first off, the age of the kids at the time that you were involved in coaching them?
He was 4. Soccer.
4 and 5?
4.
And what sport, soccer?
Soccer.
Were you the actual head coach, I guess, or
No, I was an assistant.
just kind of helping out? Okay. Did you play soccer yourself growing up, or?
No.
Okay. And is this a boy or a girl?
Boy.
Your experience watching the previous trial, did you follow what the defense was that was presented by the individual who was on trial?
Not really.
Okay. Did you pay attention to the testimony of any particular witness?
No.
Okay. Prior to receiving your summons to come into court, did the name Andrea Sneiderman mean anything to you?
I mean, I do love her.
Okay. You knew of her.
Okay, for the case.
Was that in conjunction with the previous case?
Yes.
Do you recall watching any of her testimony in that previous case? Did you form any opinion concerning her based on the previous case?
Not really.
So as you stand here today, you have no real opinion of her one way or the other based on the previous trial.
That's correct.
And you are completely fair and impartial and could be as to resolving this case.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
You can call the clerk's instruction, please. Thank you very much. What's next?
No objection, Judge.
Defense?
I agree, Your Honor.
57 lawyers. There's no one else is qualified. Eight. Next. You may proceed.
Ma'am, you indicated that you, when I asked the questions earlier, that you have a close friend or a family member who has suffered or is suffering from a mental illness. Is that correct? All right. How close is this family member to you? None. Do you see her enough to tell us what the diagnosis may be, what the mental illness is?
Monthly, she's at, resides at Georgia Regional.
At Georgia Regional? Okay. Do you know what the diagnosis is? Do you know if it's mentally retarded?
Since birth.
Okay. So she was born like this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I assume the condition is consistent?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. You also indicated earlier that there was when the judge was asking about conflicts and hardships and things that were in conflict with the trial, that there was something that you had coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I want to follow up on that. What is that?
Well, I work for Emory University Financial Aid, and I'm only one responsible for Pell reconciliation, federal grant reconciliation.
Federal grant?
Mm-hmm, and we're going through reconciliation, and it has to be done before the third.
All right, now I presume you're not the only person in the department. There are other people there.
Currently, I am, because the accountant left the job a month ago.
Okay.
We're still in the process of hiring, and I have a letter from the director.
You have a letter from the director? And just without saying it, I presume the letter states that you're the only person that works in the department to reconcile this?
Correct. And I'm leaving the country September 1st, the first week of September.
Okay. You've also indicated that you have formed an opinion about this case?
Just based on what I've read and seen in the news. in the
Okay.
past.
And well, let's start here. Let's step back a little bit. What have you read and seen in the news in the past?
The Newman trial,
Okay.
I did follow that, and the Sneiderman case that's coming up, just because you see it on the news,
Yeah.
there were dismissive things, but not to the point of being into it.
Now, you understand that this is not the Newman trial, correct? And do you understand that the defendant wasn't charged in the Newman trial?
Correct.
Correct.
Mhm.
And that if you're selected as a juror in this case, then what the court's going to instruct you is that you to set those things aside and look at the evidence and the facts, listen to the testimony, and make a decision based on those things. Are you telling us that you cannot do that?
I'm not saying that I cannot do it, I just say that I know a little bit about it, but not enough to, I mean, you can make a private opinion, but not juror's opinion.
Can you set your private opinion apart and follow the court's instruction to make a decision, not based off of what you've heard on Channel 2 or 5 or anything like that, to make a decision based off of what you hear in the courtroom from the witness stand? Can you do that?
Yes.
Are you sure about that? Is that yes?
Yes.
Okay. There is a remark you made about an unwarranted arrest. Can you tell us about that? It was on question 40. It says, have you or a family member or a close friend had a particularly good or bad experience with the police or law enforcement? And it says unwarranted arrest, and it has arrest as in plural.
My brother was arrested just for being in a group of, kids that was fighting us, things like that. But that's pretty much it. My brother and I had 2 cousins that's been arrested, just simply based on who they know or who they were.
Who it was? Guilt by association. Okay. Was that here in DeKalb County? Okay.
Yeah.
Fulton. How old were your relatives that this happened to?
Early 30s.
Early 30s. And how long ago was it that this happened?
About
10 years ago. Now, police officers are likely to testify in this case. What happened with your cousins or your relatives or your friends, would that prevent you from listening to their testimony and judging based off of the evidence and the facts and what you hear in the courtroom? Could you be fair to the police officers in this case when they testify?
Yes.
Okay. And I believe there was also an armed robbery or some sort of crime, and you were not satisfied with the police response.
Yeah, my sister was robbed at ATM at 8 months pregnant, and no one was ever found. And I don't think they did too much follow-up.
You don't feel like they did their best?
No.
Was that here in DeKalb County as well? All right, and I'll ask you the same question I just asked you. Is that going to keep you from listening to the evidence when the police officers testify and then judging what they say based on what you hear? Are you going to be able to be fair to the police?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
If you remain, Ms. Morgan.
True number 58, I'm not quite clear. I understand your job at Emory has to do with reconciling the students' Pell Grants, is that right?
And also, I do the disbursement, so with school starting, I will be pulling the disbursement, federal disbursements. The federal government has gotten a little bit strict when it comes to how many people can go into their databases and download documentation.
Okay.
So, and I'm one of them, and the only other person that would have that clearance is on maternity leave. So, the accountant being missing out of our office, I am basically the only one.
Well, that was my next question. The students are not going to get their checks unless you're there to enter the data. Is that what you're telling
To
us?
disperse it, yeah.
And did your boss provide a letter to that effect?
Correct.
Design?
Mhm.
Okay. So this is, to make sure I understand, you're the only person at Emory University, it's a big place. They can put this information in their computers so the kids get their tuition checks.
Well, it's because of the audit and because I know I haven't been the only one doing it at the time. I have to be the one since I signed the checks to be there to be participating in the audit.
So you also sign the checks when it cut?
Well, I don't sign the checks, it comes in electronically.
Okay.
And I have the electronic clearance.
And is this for kids who are students who are about to start their fall semester?
It's incoming and continuing students. We have 13 schools and all of it comes out of the one financial aid office.
Okay. What would happen if you were like sick for 2 or 3 weeks? What would Emory do?
The director would take, I'm sure my director can do some things, but of course, he's been busy with doing the financial aid office.
You also have that you are starting college August the 12th.
But it is part-time,
Is that a day class or night class?
no,
So if you were out this court by 5 o'clock in the afternoon, that
I can,
being in trial would not interfere.
not with the vaccine.
Now, you also heard Judge Adams a few months ago ask all the jurors, had they formed an opinion about this case as to the guilt or innocence? Okay. And you didn't raise your hand.
Right,
And you also said that you could be fair and impartial.
right.
And on Friday, when you filled out this questionnaire and swore that it was true, you said you believed that Andrea Sneiderman was guilty. Has anything changed between Friday and today?
Well, only that those are opinions just based on, seeing the media, but I have been a juror before, so I know the difference between taking that out and looking at the evidence itself.
So you've been a juror and you can base it on the evidence. So the opinion you put here on Friday afternoon, on Friday morning when you filled this out, is nothing's happened since Friday and today that has changed your opinion. You're just saying that looking at the case, you can judge it fairly on the evidence. No further questions.
And Juror 58, I understand you may have presented at 11, you may even have it. But if I understand that your manager or director, he or she, if you're not available, I'm just following up on what Mr. Morgan asked, he or she could actually they'll be authorized to enter the data. I know they don't want to.
No, they would have to basically push it back until I got back because my name was on
Well, I understand from the previous
yeah,
one.
yeah, from the 13th.
But as Mr. Morgan asked the question, I mean, I know Emory's, I'm not picking on him, is a big employer here in the county. And I understand the fall semester may be starting fairly soon, and I understand the importance of it, but when I'm just asking, when your, for lack of a better term, manager or director be authorized to go in and enter that data if needed?
No, he would have to basically push it back. Our deadline is August 30th, but the Department of Education will allow us to push it back if it's necessary.
Well, I thought, so the deadline is officially August the 30th. So as long as you back at work by August, I'm saying you got a lot of work to do between now and then. And you feel that even if you were here, if your manager would not be able to perform that task, you believe you could get an extension in which those individuals would not be penalized as a result of you doing your civic duty.
Correct.
Am I, okay. Anything else you want to tell us?
No, other than leaving the country September 7th.
I'm gonna get you on that flight. All right, here's follow the instructions of the clerk, please. Thank you. Next position.
Ron, she's qualified. She said she's been a juror before, she could set whatever she felt before aside. And she also didn't definitively state that Andrea Sneiderman was guilty. I think the response to question 51 was Andrea Sneiderman may be guilty. And so I think that was perhaps a mischaracterization of her statement. But she definitely stated that she could, that she could set it aside. And in terms of her conflict, it's Emory's hardship, but she indicated that they could get an extension from the Department of Education if need be. And she also intimated, but then she corrected it later, that someone else could do it, but she could definitely get an extension.
Mr. Warren.
Judge, I agree. I do not think that she has a bias and prejudice that would necessitate her being excused. I do have a vested interest since my daughter is at Emory and would be getting one of those checks, so I hope it doesn't hold it up.
I'm saying. But at this point in time, Lori's, she's qualified. That'd be number 58, and I will, before you break, number 58 will be qualified. That's it right now. Lori's approach.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Hullinger, and we are watching the proceedings as you are wherever you may be. This is the second session today of trying to find jurors for the charges facing Andrea Sneiderman. It is the state of Georgia versus Ms. Sneiderman, and as of 12 noon today, they had a pool of 40. They need to pick actual 12 jurors and 3 alternates, and the expectation is they will accomplish such a task by 1:30 on Thursday afternoon. There are some curious aspects of what we have been able to hear from this afternoon proceeding that began around 1:30, a little more than an hour and a half ago. Among them, you have heard repeatedly reference to the George Zimmerman trial in Florida from earlier in the month as a sort of metaphor that the system is not always fair. At least that is the perspective from some of the prospective jurors that we have been able to hear from this afternoon. Again, the timetable on this is floating somewhat. We're trying to figure out if some of the evidence will be submitted. The actual court proceedings will begin on Friday, or will it begin after a delay of the weekend and then commence on Monday? That is something we still do not know yet. One of the attorneys said earlier today that he expects this trial will go on for approximately 3 weeks, which some of the experts that we have talked to over the last 24 to 48 hours have sort of projected that it would be a week to a week and a half affair. That still may be the case, but we are hearing at least from one of the attorneys today that there is the belief that this could go through most of the month of August. A reminder that we are going to have a panel of experts at 7 o'clock tonight. We will have an update on all the proceedings at 6 o'clock, and, of course, on the rundown at 10 on WATL, and then at 11 o'clock on 11 Alive. Glenda Hatchett, the former judge who has had a very successful syndicated television show on court proceedings over the last decade, will be with DeMarco Morgan in our studio answering some of the questions that you may have tweeted us or perhaps you have put on our Facebook page. She will try to answer some of that. I will also have an attorney with me outside of the courthouse here in Decatur. Bill Morrison will be joining me. He has experience in criminal defense as well, as you're taking a look at Andrea Sneiderman, who prior to the afternoon session we had the opportunity to see her and seemed to be in a good mood, a joyous mood. She was smiling a lot, engaging a number of people inside the courtroom before the session began, as this proceeding now has gone on for her under a cloud of suspicion for almost more than a year. The murder charges were dropped, as you know, on Friday, but she is still facing some very, very serious charges that, if convicted on these charges, could land her in jail for a long time. So that is the stakes, and that is the situation, and we will have more coming your way here on 11 Alive. And also you can, if you are just joining us, sort of dialing in and dialing out to try to get a sense of how this is playing out today, and we're wondering what has transpired, you can get an update, and you can do that by checking out 11alive.com. We have a whole section on the Andrea Sneiderman trial, and there you can get an update. You can also check out on Twitter. Jay Watson is tweeting from inside the courtroom, as is Julie Wolf, and they have some illuminating information, I think, that will give you some fascinating insight to this sort of long, drawn-out process to try and find some jurors seated for this trial. So we will take it back inside the courtroom as Judge Gregory A. Adams is proceeding. The attorneys for both the prosecution and the defense now have been called to the bench to talk with Judge Adams about an assortment of issues as they continue to try and get this jury pool going. As of 12 noon today, they had 30. They need 10 more. Of course, they will have 12 and then 3 alternates, and then that healthy pool if need be.
back on the record. As far as the next particular juror, juror number 59, what's the state's position?
That's the juror number 59, Your Honor.
Based on the questionnaire, yes.
Oh, based on the questionnaire, the court, the state would ask the court to choose juror number 59 for cause, Your Honor.
And we concur.
All right, 59 lawyers in an agreement, and I will accept that recommendation, will be removed from call in a questioning sequence based upon, right now I know we're going to take a break for this, so we'll be on the same page. The next potential juror will be number 60, and I will talk to jury management, and we will work on the logistics about the afternoon and tomorrow session, okay? We'll recess, it'll be 10 minutes. All right. Ladies, please.
She may be secretary now. She worked in the record room when I was listening.
Okay.
And I didn't. Yeah, we can see
If everybody shows up. Well, what you're fixing that height. So you're at 5. Okay. And it depends on whether the next juror is like 27 looks good or bad. Juror 27, we can decide. Okay. Hey, I've seen it extra. I can't find the picture. I love that you do that. Make us because we get a conviction. You know, we have to go to the person there. I think I put it in a safer place. Back.
Because I asked Karen, passed it on to her.
Right.
She said she knew nothing about it.
Right. It's safest.
It's real simple. Thank you.
Yeah. Once he does it, we'll know what you need again.
Right.
the boss.
That's 3. Was that 3 for me or 4 for me? I lose count.
It's 7 o'clock. Yeah.
John, did I hear we are on Thursdays now, so we're not available on Thursday?
Beg pardon?
We are going on, we're not, we are going on Thursday.
Yes, during the trial, yes. Beg pardon? Yeah, what I'm hoping to do is upload them to Ignite and incorporate them into the minutes. Apparently, this calls for third month. Oh, well, yeah, I think all kinds of children kind of like. I take that their opinions. They are. But they make you feel like that. Yeah, even just a little. Then you feel, these make you feel like I should be on plantation. I'll be here. Somebody's saying. This chatterbox green. Yeah. All right. All right, you may be seated. Bring in, is state ready?
Stage ready, Your Honor.
Press ready?
Yes, sir.
Bring in number 60. You may proceed.
Juror number 60, you indicated in question number 11 that you had some sort of conflict. You also indicated when the court was asking questions that you had some sort of conflict that you wanted to tell us about.
Absolutely. I've lived in DeKalb County since '92, on and off. It's probably the 12th time I've been to jury selection. I'm self-employed. I have 8 employees. I'm good for a couple of days, but I feel like an extended 2 to 4 week trial would be really, really difficult for me to do.
Explain to me how that would be difficult, what effect would it have on your business?
You know, if this were a 2 to 3 couple of days, it's a little bit easier for me. My employees somewhat rely on me on day-to-day operations, not necessarily that I'm micromanaging, but over a period of 2 to 4 weeks with purchasing supplies, doing things such as making decisions on how the business runs, employment, it would be a little bit of a stressful situation over a long period of time.
Okay, let's step back. First of all, what is your business?
Apartment development.
Apartment development. And what is apartment development?
What we do is we buy apartments, fix them up, rent them out. We have about 500 apartments. They extend from Clayton to DeKalb over to Fulton County. We run about 8 employees, 2 leasing agents, and 5 to 6 maintenance guys.
So what is your role on a day-to-day basis?
It can be anything from going to get supplies, making decisions on what units are going to become available, showing units, anything from making sure people are showing up, training new people. We have 2 new people who just joined. And our business right now, what makes it a little bit difficult at this point is that people are starting to go back to school, parents, things like that. so it's somewhat of a seasonal business. We're trying to get everything leased up right now before the end of August, really before technically that window of new school move-ins.
You say we and our, is there a vice president, you have a partner,
I'm a partner, I have investors, none of them really run my day-to-day operations. I use we as in terms of the entire operation, my staff, in that sense.
Okay, so what happens if you're not there? If you get selected, you have to stay for 2-3 weeks, what happens?
I don't really know from a perspective of moving people in would be probably the biggest problem. I do all the move-ins for properties. I do all the inspections for properties. Like I said, I think if this were a shorter amount of time, a few days or something like that, it would not be a really big deal for us.
Okay.
For me, but over a long period of time, it becomes a little more complicated.
You indicated that there was an arrest for DUI, but no conviction. It says girlfriend arrested for DUI.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry. Not you.
Yeah.
Do you believe that she was treated fairly through that process?
I do.
Okay. All right. Was that here in DeKalb County?
I don't remember. I don't know. I think it's Baltimore.
You've also had discussions with people about this case, correct?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about those discussions.
Really, I don't know a lot about the case. I just know the way that it ended with Mr. Newman being arrested or being convicted.
It says, friends after Emmy Newman was convicted. Tell me what y'all discussed, what y'all said.
I don't remember. I just remember having how the outcome of the case came about.
Okay. You're familiar with the media coverage, and I'm talking specifically about this case, not the Newman case. How much media coverage have you seen on this case?
Almost none.
Okay.
Almost zero on this.
Question number 54, you indicated that the wife of Mr. Sneiderman, I'm trying to read it right here, I'm having trouble. I think it was the way it was presented. The wife of Mr. Sneiderman and her, Your Honor, may I approach the witness with this question? For me, I can't read it.
Let me do it this way. Jay, if you could just hand that way, you just hand the copy.
It is highlighted.
Yeah, I write this. I believe that what I did here from that case was, I believe that Ms. Sneiderman, there were conflicts within what she told the police that first day that Mr. Newman was arrested or something to that effect.
Okay. All right. Where did you hear that from? How did you ascertain that?
Media or friends. It's been a long time.
If you sit in this trial as a juror, you're going to have to set aside any opinions or any conclusions that you've arrived at or come to based on things that you've heard in the public, based on what you've heard in the media. You're going to have to make a decision. So the court's instruction based off of the facts and the evidence and the testimony, the things that happened in this courtroom. Can you do that?
Yeah, I don't think that would be a problem.
Okay. Question number 59. In my opinion, Mrs. Sneiderman did not seem to grieve or show emotion, empathy at the loss / death of her husband. How did you come to that conclusion?
It's just my recollections from the early part of the media campaign.
Okay. Is that something that recollection, is that something that's going to affect your ability to sit as a fair and impartial juror in this case?
I don't think so.
Okay. I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clegg.
Yes, thank you, sir. Sir, your business, if I understand it correctly, are you primarily involved in purchasing older apartment buildings, renovating them, and then getting them up to speed so they can be rented out?
Yes, sir.
And do you subsequently try to sell them after they have been renovated, or are you intending to hold them for a fairly long period of time?
We hold for a fairly long time.
How long have you been in this business?
Since 1994.
And you are constantly, right now, are you actually renovating certain properties?
On a small scale, yes, but the bigger operations we haven't done. So
The 8 folks who work for you, what is it they do day in, day out?
maintain, current properties and on a very smaller scale renovate units.
Do you have crew chiefs who go out, or are each of the 8 individuals given a specific assignment by you every day?
I have a supervisor, we sit down and I give them a weekly goal to achieve, and then I spend most of my week making sure that those goals are being achieved by staff.
Is it necessary for you to monitor their progress on a regular basis?
Absolutely.
Okay. And you had indicated a perhaps 2 to 3 day trial would be feasible, but you might have difficulty with something lasting a number of weeks. Is that correct?
An extended period of time would be difficult.
Okay. Would that inhibit or limit your ability to monitor the progress that the various crews were making, doing whatever task they were assigned to?
I've never been in this position, so I don't really know what would happen after an extended period of time. So to answer your question, I don't know what would happen without inspection or oversight on basically a weekly basis or every 2 or 3 days, keeping up with what's going on.
Okay. Would that be something you could do on the weekends, or is that something that simply could not be accomplished during that short period of time?
I don't know, like I said, I've never really been in this position before where I would be out of contact for several weeks, so I don't know. I'm usually pretty involved in the operation.
Mr. James had asked you whether you had a business partner. I believe you indicated that you had. Is your role analogous to being the CEO of the business?
I'd say more of the operation.
Chief COO, Chief Operating Officer?
Yes.
Okay. Does your partner actually involve himself or herself in any of the day-to-day activities of the business?
No, sir.
Is your partner in a position to be able to step in and assume those responsibilities?
Maybe, I have no idea. It would
Has you ever asked your partner previously to do that?
Yes, on a limited basis to do a move-in or sign documents or things like that. I have.
But your partner, is it fair to say, has never done what you do on a regular basis?
That is absolutely.
Do you believe your business would be adversely affected as a result of your having to sit on a jury for the period of time we are contemplating?
Yes, sir.
Would that affect your ability to focus on and pay attention to the evidence presented in the case?
Yes, sir. I do believe it would.
Okay. Now, you watched the first 48, is that correct?
I did.
How frequently do you watch that show?
As much as I can, but I probably clock in maybe 1 or 2 times a week.
And have they ever filmed, or have you ever watched any episodes that appeared to have been set in DeKalb County?
No, I do not think so.
Talking about this particular case, you indicated that one thing that you had become aware of was the fact that Mrs. Sneiderman apparently had had certain communications with people during the course of the day when her husband was killed.
Yes,
Can you be more specific than that as to the extent of your knowledge?
I cannot.
Okay. Does that fact make you conclude or have an opinion as to whether or not she had knowledge that her husband was going to be killed?
No, sir.
Does it give you any opinion as you stand here today as to the guilt or innocence of the charges that she has pending against her?
No, sir.
Okay. The second matter you specifically commented on dealt with your opinion that she did not seem to show grief or emotion or empathy at the death of her husband. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What specifically are you basing that on?
Feelings, it was from a long time ago. I remember from the miscommunications that appeared to go on from that first day, that they seemed to indicate to me that there was maybe a lack of interest or a lack of emotion. I would think would be proper.
So your concern or your opinion in that regard relates to her alleged behavior at or about the time of the death of her husband. Is that correct? Have you familiarized yourself with any of the evidence showing her emotional state on November 18th of 2010, which is the day Rusty Sneiderman died?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any knowledge of her emotional state at the time of the funeral of her husband several days later?
Yes, sir.
Good enough, sir. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Just all of our steps at the clerk. Thank you very much. The state's position,
I believe he's qualified here with
defense,
I believe in light of his employment situation here, not actually his employment, his business, the fact that he's got 8 folks who work for him, the fact that his business partner has no documented history of stepping in on a regular basis and doing what he does day in, day out, And in light of the fact that he said if he were to be selected to sit on this jury, he would have a hard time focusing on the testimony by virtue of the fact that he would be concerned about the fact that his business was not being run, that he qualifies for a hardship, and I would ask you to excuse him. Also ask you to excuse him on the grounds that he did say he would have difficulty paying and focusing the degree of attention which is necessary in this case, Your Honor.
All right, Kelly, we're back on record. Lori, I think he meets the basic qualifications to be qualified, but the only thing that gives me any pause is that he represents that he is self-employed, although he does have a business partner. Lori, I'm going to go ahead and remove the call based upon a possible financial hardship in this business, although it's very close, but I'm going to err on the side of letting him go at this point in time. Bring in number 61. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Juror 61, this is not the first time you've been called to jury service, is that right?
That's right.
Okay, when was the last time you served as a juror in a criminal case?
I believe it was about 10 years ago, came to Cape. About 10 years.
All right. And what did you think of that experience overall?
That's interesting.
Okay. And that how you would choose to spend your time?
Excuse me?
Not generally how you would choose to spend your time, but
Not necessarily, but it was interesting. I enjoyed, serving.
I don't have written down that you erased your card at all this morning or this afternoon when the judge was asking general questions. So you don't have any scheduling conflicts, anything like that. We need to know that. You are a nurse at the Shepherd Center. You've been there for several years. What specifically do you do? Are you a
Bedside nurse essentially, but I sometimes I do charging.
you do children's care? You know a little bit about this case. You said you'd heard about it, but don't have any opinion.
No, I don't.
Okay. Anything since you've been here changed your mind about that? Caused you to have an opinion one way or the other? Can you think of any reason you wouldn't be a fair and impartial juror for both the state and the defense in this case? Thank you.
Mr. Morgan.
Thank you. Your sister, after you were trained, you worked as a nurse, and you got your master's as well, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you work up there before coming to Georgia? or-
Yes, I worked there for about 17 years. I've been a nurse for 24 years.
Okay. And is your specialty in catastrophic illness such as spinal injuries?
Not everything. I do neurosurgery and I also do home care nursing. So I've been out visiting patients.
How did you end up at Shepherd's? I mean, that's got to be
I ended
an
up at
emotional toll, isn't it?
Well, I'll be quite honest. The reason why I went to Shepherd, I needed to find a job that would be on the weekends, working at nights, because I had small children at that time. So that's my choice, and I also had that experience before. So I went to Shepherd.
Which shift are you working at Shepherd's now?
I work Thursday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night.
Thursday night, are you working 11 to 7? Or
I
is-
work from 6:30 p.m. until 7 a.m. in the morning.
Okay. If you were selected as a juror in this case, and we would be going on Fridays and Mondays, would you try to work that shift the night
No, I
before?
would not be able to work. They
Okay.
are aware that I'm at jury duty presently, and I told them I would update them in terms of what's going to be going on.
Okay, I just want to make sure, you were not going to try to work all night.
No, oh, no.
Okay, just, we want to make that,
I think I can do that.
okay. You attend Dr. Stanley's church?
Occasionally, my husband is one who goes there, but I do on occasion. I work Saturday night, so I don't go too often on Sunday.
Understandable. But do you attend his church up in Dunwoody?
Yes, I'm assuming that's where it is.
And you don't know anything about this case in relationship to the geography of that church, is that correct?
No,
Okay, and you have very little knowledge about this case?
very little knowledge.
Nothing further, Judge?
Thank you. You can follow the instructions of the clerk. The state's position.
No objection to this, Chair, Your Honor.
Defense.
No objection.
61 be qualified.
Your Honor, may I just bring some of the court's attention before the next juror comes out?
You may.
We don't need to approach. This next juror, Your Honor, indicated that she has scoliosis, and the court may look and decide she needs to sit down during the question. She indicated that was a medical condition that she had.
That's wonderful. Also, what time is it? I will need to meet with the representative from WSB and Mr. Richards, or whoever is the spokespersons for the media. Not lawyers, the parties, with the media and Mr. Richards or whoever is representative of WSB, who's the crew camera. If we could plan on having a meeting at 4:30 here in this courtroom. Would that, well, let me ask the question this way, would that interfere with your broad, and I'm not, I was gonna talk about some issue, but I don't interfere with your deadline.
I can handle that, yeah.
Okay. Bring in 62. Juror number 60, you may be seated. You may proceed.
Thank you. Juror 62, can you tell us how your medical condition might affect you if you were a juror on this case?
I just, if I sit a certain amount of time, I start to hurt, so I can't just sit anymore.
Okay. Were you having any pain or difficulty when you came for jury service, either on Friday or today?
Like I said, when I sit down, it just hurt, like, you see how I lean? It hurts, like, just to sit in one place, especially when I do shit.
Those chairs are,
Yeah.
make it uncomfortable. Is there anything to do that we could do, stretch breaks, things like that, that could accommodate your situation, or do you think a trial of this length, 3 weeks or so, would be too much?
If I could just, stand, go somewhere and just stand, I'd be fine.
Okay.
When you use the term go somewhere and stand, if you were on a jury, would standing in that box be okay, or you need to be able to walk around and move around?
I mean, as long as I can just like stretch, I'll be fine.
Have you had, and I know you came up on Friday for a good number of hours, you were here for several hours now. Have you been in any stretch? Has your discomfort been to the extent that you would be unable to focus and listen to the evidence?
No.
Are you on any type of medication that affects your ability to listen, hear, or stay awake?
No, like if I take it at nighttime and I get, take it at a certain time, I'll be okay to stay awake.
All right. You may continue.
I have no further questions. Sir.
Mr.
No question.
Teacher? You may follow the instructions of the clerk. Thank you.
Oh.
What's state's position?
I think we moved to excuse this juror for a medical hardship, Your Honor. I think she had a very good attitude and is willing to fulfill her civic duty, but I would note for the record that she did have difficulty walking in and out of the courtroom, and as I was discussing her level of discomfort with her, she appeared visibly uncomfortable.
I would concur with that, Your Honor, that I asked the court to issue due to her medical disability.
All right, lawyers, I will accept that recommendation. 62 will release the call. Next person is 63. Thank you.
Juror 63, Tell me, have you recently moved into Atlanta?
I am moving as of the 31st tomorrow. I am moving out of our house in Georgia.
Okay, and your address in Atlanta, is that DeKalb County or is that Fulton County, sir?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Is Atlanta, Georgia?
Well, what county is it?
Do you know which
Because
county?
it's part of the
I'm
land.
not sure what county. I don't know if the address is Atlanta, Georgia. It's right off of Glenwood, which I'm moving right off of Glenwood. So it's at the other end of Glenwood at 20, right at Highway 20.
You know, on Moreland Avenue is?
Yes.
Are you on this side of Moreland Avenue or the side closest to the stadium side of Moreland Avenue?
I am on the side closer to the state.
This side?
No,
Moreland's here.
Okay.
Moreland's here. Glenwood's here. I am right off. If you come down, if you come from Moreland onto Glenwood, and right there at the bridge 120 is, I'm right after the bridge.
Okay.
Street right after.
The ridge?
Bridge.
The bridge?
The bridge. The overpass
Overpass.
over 20,
Okay.
the next street after that, I'm on that next street.
I understand. Okay, but, and with Moreland Avenue, when I say, are you closer to Decatur or are you closer to Atlanta? I'm just trying to get,
I'm closer to Atlanta.
okay, because
I'm closer to Moreland than I am to Decatur.
okay, go ahead.
You want to, I might
You may.
suggest that the juror write down her new address. I certainly don't
I'm
need to
saying-
know it, but, and then maybe the jury clerk or something, we could check to make sure. And all the concern is just making sure whether, if you were selected as a juror in the case, you would still be a DeKalb County resident.
Correct.
Well, you live in the cap right now, though, right?
Yes, I'm in the cap right now.
And you're moving tomorrow?
I am moving as of today. My brother's tomorrow, moving my stuff out. My lease is up tomorrow.
All right.
All right.
You also let us know that,
The lawyer approach.
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeff Hullinger here in Decatur, outside the DeKalb County Courthouse. You are watching the proceedings of jury selection in the case against Andrea Sneiderman. Murder charges were dropped last Friday, and now there is the attempt to try and seat a jury so that the evidence can begin in this case. We are not sure when that will begin. The speculation has been perhaps on Friday, perhaps on Monday. This we do know. Judge Adams has decreed that a jury will be in place. The expectation is from the judge that Thursday by 1:30 everybody should be in place. As of noon, there were 30 potential jurors that were qualified. As of about an hour ago, there were 33, and you have heard the questioning of many others. And we have heard a litany of opinions, thoughts, observations, and musings from prospective jurors, not only about their personal lives, but their professional lives, and their view of this case, which has received so much widespread attention on television, on radio, in the newspaper, not only locally, but regionally and nationally as well. There is the belief that everybody knows about this case, and at least coming into this selection process, that everybody had an opinion. But I think one of the headlines that we have learned from this day has been the fact that there are a lot of people out there that have really digested a lot of information, yet they still are unsure as to the guilt or innocence of Andrea Sneiderman. So they continue. The break came today about 12 o'clock, and then we have begun for the afternoon session about 1:30, 1:35, somewhere in that area, and we are 7 minutes before 4 o'clock. So we are making our way on the second day of jury selection, and we now will pick up the proceedings here in Decatur.
You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. You also are the primary caregiver for a child or an elderly relative?
I have 3 kids, and I have one that's special needs. He's deaf.
Okay, that's your 19-year-old?
Yes.
Okay. And what kind of day-to-day care does his situation involve for you?
Pretty much is right now he's in my support. I do work.
Okay. So if you are a juror in this case and we begin testimony on the 5th, you would need to be here Monday and be here for 2 to 3 weeks after that. What kind of hardship, if any, would then you have in caring for your?
I don't have any childcare for him after he gets home. That's why my job has a time set that I leave at 2:45, that I'm home when he gets there.
Okay, what time does he get home?
He gets home at 3:15.
At 3:15.
And I also have a 9-year-old.
Okay, and your job as a healthcare tech at the Clinton Public School System, that allows you to be home for him when he gets home? Okay. What arrangements or what substitute arrangements do you have for him when you are unavailable for some other reason?
I don't.
You don't?
No. Their dad is military and he is stationed in Washington State and Virginia.
Okay.
So I'm there with the picture.
All right. Your son that we're talking about is 19. Does he have some other, besides his hearing difficulty, does he have another issue or any other medical condition that,
No,
that
your
your 9-year-old?
My 9-year-old has ADHD.
Okay. And what kind of care does your 9-year-old require?
I don't really have him in any kind of program other than me taking care
Just
of
to take
him.
care of him. Okay. All right. You identified for us that you are close to somebody who has a mental illness.
My mother.
Your mother? Okay. And not to get very personal, but can you tell me if there was a diagnosis?
She has Alzheimer's.
Okay. Prior to her developing that disease, did she have any kind of mental illness?
Okay, right now.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Clegg, for,
I don't believe I have any questions yet.
oh, thank you very much. What's the safe position?
I think that this here is excusable for her hardship, Your Honor.
We have no objection, Your Honor. We agree.
All right, Lord, since there's an agreement, I will let her go call hardship. Number 64 should be coming next. You may proceed.
Thank you. Juror 64?
If you can stay up there a minute. Thank you.
You raised your hand that you had a hardship or a scheduling problem with being here for jury service. Can you tell me what that is?
I'm in college.
You're in college? Okay. And your classes start August 19th? Is that what you wrote down? Okay. What classes do you have? How many? What kind of hours do you have starting on the 19th?
Right now, there's 3 classes. I have calculus, pre-calculus, history, and I have political science.
Okay.
And
Which days of the week do you attend? Mondays and Wednesdays? All 3 classes are Monday, Wednesday?
yeah, but that's the 3 I apply for right now. I'm applying for one.
Okay. Would that class also be a Monday, Wednesday class? If you were selected as a juror in this case and unable to go to classes that would begin the 19th, we estimate that the trial would last 2 to 3 weeks, and that would be 1 week of your class once it had started. What kind of problem would that present for you?
I could possibly fail.
I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Ms. Morgan?
Yes, Your Honor, just a few follow-up
You may.
questions. I didn't hear, are you attending college here in Metro area? Parsons.
And you're entering freshman, is that right? Okay, sophomore, so you already have a year behind you. What's your major?
Business administration.
And you work at the Farmers Market in College Park? In Jonesboro. And you're 19 years old, right? And according to your juror questionnaire, you started working there when you were 11?
No, I started working on it, and I started working there when I was 11.
Okay, you started working though when you were 11? And who do you live with? Do you reside with the family or?
Yes.
But again, you're starting classes on the 19th
Yes.
and every Monday and Wednesday. And so calculus, political science, and others. And history. No further questions.
Are you class, are you taking evening class or day classes?
My classes start at 8:30, 9:45, from 10 to 11:15, and then, from 11 to 2:15, and then my next one schedule will be from, 2:30 to 2:45.
Thank you. You're going to follow the instruction of the clerk. What's the state's position?
Because of this juror's status as a full-time student, the state would move to excuse him for hardship.
Ms. Morgan?
I believe, he is eligible to be excused from the judge.
All right. Since there's a consensus, juror number 64 will be released for cause. Lori 65 should be next. Number 65, should be. You stand right here, right here. Right in front of the first chair. Thank you, juror number 65.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you. I just want to ask a couple follow-up questions. You told us you have a potential conflict if you get selected to serve as a juror.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about it and how it serves as a hardship?
Okay, because I'm a divorced mother of 3 right now and also a part-time student at Point University.
How old are your children?
17, 15, and 11.
All right. They're out of school right now, is that
They are
correct?
correct.
And if you were to just be gone during normal business hours and able to be home at night?
Well, that would conflict with my schoolwork. though.
With your schoolwork, okay. And how many classes are you taking in the evening?
Right now, currently 1 is my last class before my degree is finished.
Okay, your last class before your degree. What time is your class?
It is from 6 to 10, and then the rest is all online.
In Point University, where is it located?
East Point.
In East Point. If you were selected to serve as a juror, how would your service affect your ability to get to class on time and to focus, if at all?
I think most of it is mostly just being able to study and do my research. So I don't know how long we would have to be here, but it would take away from the time that I usually do my research. It's just usually right after work or sometimes in between there.
And when do classes start?
The class starts at 6 p.m.
I'm sorry, are you currently in session now?
Yes.
Oh, I
I'm
see.
in session, yes.
Okay. All right. And if you had to serve as a juror, do you believe the fact that you have 3 children who you wouldn't be able to care for, as well as your school responsibilities would preoccupy you to the point that you would not be able to concentrate on the evidence?
Correct.
All right. And I'm just gonna go through your questionnaire really quickly, because I think you pointed out for us the fact that you had to be here made you angry.
Yes, it is.
Tell us about that. I mean,
Yes, because just the fact that I have to have this case come in and interfere with a lot of stuff. I just started a new job. It's a month just on Friday, and so it's new. I'm still in a probation period, so yeah, that may be a little thing. I had to halt everything. Plus, I just started my new class, so yeah.
so you really, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I don't want to be stronger than you intend for us to receive it. But it sounds as though you resent the fact that you actually have to be here because it's interfering
Yes.
with what you have going on.
Right, correct.
And that would affect your ability to be a fair and impartial juror.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you. Ma'am, you indicated that you were angry because you got a notice to be here.
Yes, correct, maybe the time is off.
Okay. Would you agree with me that unless jurors are willing to come to court and sit as jurors, then court's gonna collapse?
Correct, but I understand that people have different schedules, and mine is not at this time free.
I understand that, but you understand that nobody in this courtroom, when that notice came out, had any idea what your schedule was?
Correct, and it's, yeah, it's been written down.
Okay, it has, but you're not inconvenienced, you're not annoyed, you're angry.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I fully understand what you expressed, what you've written. Sorry. I follow the instructions of the clerk. What's the state's position?
Your Honor, based on the juror's questionnaire and her responses, I'm going to ask that she be removed for cause. Clearly, she doesn't want to be here. She's indicated that she could not be a fair and impartial juror if she selected. Because of that.
Ms. Defense.
Your Honor, I hate to throw her in the briar patch, and I hate to leave a bad taste in my mouth, but I concur. I move that she excuse cause from serving in this case, whether or not.
I acknowledge, since there's an agreement, I will go along with that position. 66. Hello.
Hello, Your Honor.
You may proceed, Mr. James.
Thank you, Judge. Juror number 66, I am looking in my notes, and the general portion, we were asking all of you all questions this morning. I don't see that you responded to anything that I asked you or that the judge put forward. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. You've indicated that you have seen or heard something about this case.
I'm sorry?
That you've seen or heard something about this case
Yeah.
in the news. Can you tell us what that is?
Years ago, nothing recent, when the incident first happened.
Okay, so let's start back then. Tell me what you heard about it when the incident first happened.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't look at the news a lot, but I remember the storyline,
Yes, ma'am.
but that's as much as I remember. I don't know the details.
Okay. Did you see it on multiple news broadcasts, or did you just watch it one time, trying to gauge how much exposure you had to the case?
Okay, maybe once. I don't watch the news, so because I don't know that stuff.
I understand. Anything lately?
No, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Do you have strong feelings or opinions, positive or negative, about the criminal justice system? Just please explain. You put not really, and I want to make sure that I understand you correctly. Does that mean not at all, or does that mean not really?
Not really, negative or positive, it's just neutral.
It just sort of is what it is.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you think that we should know?
No, sir, not that I can think of.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Moore, again?
Mr. Clay,
I'm sorry, Mr. Clay. Yes, sir.
Both of your kids are teachers, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what subjects do they teach?
My daughter's an elementary school teacher, and she teaches a variety, and my son is a high school teacher, and he coaches basketball.
Where does he coach basketball?
In South Florida.
South Georgia. How long has he been doing that?
South Florida.
South Florida, oh, okay. Is he the head coach of the team?
No.
You have an interesting education and a different career. You got a degree in social work, and now you are working for the Internal Revenue Service. What do you do for the Internal Revenue Service?
Currently, I'm a supervisor for the customer service department at the Internal Revenue Service, and I am a manager for about 10 employees.
Do you manage them on a day-to-day basis?
Yes, sir.
You had indicated in response to one of Mr. James's questions some small degree of knowledge of this case. I think you might have used the word, we followed the storyline initially or something to that effect.
Initially.
Okay. Did you, when you say initially, would that have been at the time of the actual incident?
Yes,
The
sir.
shooting? Would you have followed it after the shooting? Do you recall being made aware of the fact that a suspect had initially been arrested?
No.
Do you recall anything about pretrial proceedings leading up to the trial of that suspect?
No, sir.
Do you recall anything about the trial of that suspect?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you watch any of the trial or hear reports of any of the trial in either the TV or the newspaper?
No, sir.
Prior to coming to court, had you ever heard the name Andrea Sneiderman before?
Yes, sir.
And what was the context in which you would have heard the name Andrea Sneiderman?
Years ago when the initial incident happened.
Okay. Did you draw any sort of opinion or make any sort of opinion of Andrea Sneiderman years ago when you first heard her name?
No, sir.
Did you understand what her alleged involvement was one way or the other in the situation?
No, sir, not really.
Is it fair to say, based on your lack of knowledge in this case, you have no opinion as you stand here today as to which side ought to prevail?
I have no opinion, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Number 66, if you could follow the instructions of the clerk. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
State's position.
I believe she's qualified, Your Honor.
Defense.
And hurry up.
66 qualified.
Your Honor, before we bring in this jury, I confer with the state. You may not, I think we're all 67.
Yes, sir. You may defer to state. Yes, Mr. Ward.
Yes, Your Honor, as for jury number 67, she states in her jury questionnaire that she cannot sit and judge that past judgment because of religious and moral reasons, and there are other reasons pertaining to the questionnaire that the state have concurred that she would not be able to sit as a juror in this case.
State.
I concur, Your Honor.
Just bring out 67 just momentarily. But I'm going to grant it.
Yes, sir.
Jury number 67.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Just follow the instructions of the clerk. That would be 68. Lori should be next. You may proceed, Mr. James.
Thank you, Judge. This morning, or earlier today, rather, when the court, or either myself, asked about conflicts, I believe it was the court, you indicated that you did have some sort of conflict.
I just wasn't sure how long it would last. I have going to Oklahoma City the second week in September.
In September?
September.
I'll get you there.
Hey, I've got a software release and we're still trying to get it out, so.
Thank you. In your questionnaire, you responded to a question about media coverage, and you said, yes, I have heard of it. It being this case, I presume. Tell me what you, well, first of all, did you hear about the case that you're here for today, or did you hear about
No,
the previous case?
the whole Dunwoody daycare incident.
Okay, so tell me what you've heard.
I heard that a man was shot in the parking lot of the daycare, and I heard that the gentleman that was arrested was obsessed with the defendant.
Okay. And where did you hear this from?
On the news.
us about any relationship to the parties, the gentleman that shot the other guy in the parking lot as a defendant, or did you assert that there was an obsession?
It just said it was an obsession.
Okay. It said avoidance of, it says, in terms of opinions, avoidance of handguns due to brother's murder, then something about violent acts in the news.
I basically just kind of tune out any news coverage. Life's crazy enough as it is.
Okay. I do not believe I have any other questions except for this. Was there anything that you've heard in the media, or that you've spoken about with other people, would any of that prevent you from being a fair and impartial juror in this case?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Petrie?
Thank you. Ma'am, you indicated that your brother was killed at a convenience store robbery almost 30 years ago.
Yes, sir.
And in distinguishing that from what, in this case, you made some comment about, and it looks like MISC crime, miscellaneous crime, is that what? Did you say, the question was, do you feel that you cannot or should not serve as a juror in this case for any reason not covered by this questionnaire? And your answer was, I wish I could say that due to brother's murder, I have issues, hyphen. But that was in 1985, and it looks like MISC crime, not something premeditated.
Oh, right, miscellaneous random act of violence.
Okay, this was he an employee there or a customer?
He was working behind the register.
Okay, and this was an armed robbery that went bad?
It was an armed robbery that went bad, yes.
Okay. Does it make him any less of a victim, but this was not a premeditated
Correct.
Killing, as you understand this case might have been?
As I understand this case may have been, yes.
Okay. Now, you seem to have a bit of sardonic personality in the question a couple of times before that. Based on what you have heard about the case or on the facts as set out above, is there anything about the case that might make it difficult for you to sit as a fair and impartial juror? And if I'm reading your answer correctly, it says, unfortunately, no.
Unfortunately, no, because I have a software enhancement that needs to go out, and the length of time for a court case kind of impedes my personal life.
What I'm reading here is, I'm serving on this jury would not be number one on my list, but I don't have, other than the software going out, I don't have a problem that would keep me from serving.
No, I don't have a problem with that being an issue. It's just I have a lot of work to do.
Let me ask you about the software release. I think you said it's due sometime in the next few weeks.
Yes.
If you are selected as a juror, and the case takes approximately as long as we think, which is starting on this coming Monday, August the 5th, we're anticipating it should take around 3 weeks. So 3 to 5 day period. So again, this is the 5th, 12th, 19th, sometime around the end of the week of the 19th.
Okay.
What's that going to do to your project?
It should not have any impact.
Okay. Would you be able to, if you're selected as a juror, come into here during the day, focus on this case, and not worry about your project?
Yes.
Okay. Now, earlier on, ma'am, you indicated that insofar as a physical problem that might make it difficult, you said, as long as I have back support.
Yes, sir.
Have you had an opportunity to sit in one of these chairs?
I have.
I'm going to take a wild guess and think that that's probably not the kind of back support that you need.
I have an extra lumbar pillow.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. You do have a lumbar pillow?
I blew a back disc back in 2006, so as long as I have an ergonomic, additional lower back support.
And you can bring that?
Yes, I can.
Would you have any reservations if Judge Adams were to, like if all of a sudden you realize, whoa, I need to stretch, would you have any reservations about raising your hand just to let us know that you need to stand up or you need to take a break?
No.
If the court allowed it.
If the court allowed it,
It's
yes.
not up to me, but if the court will allow you to take a reasonable stretch break every so often and you have your lumbar support, do you believe that you would be able to focus on the case and not be in enough discomfort.
Oh, yes.
Okay, okay. If you bear with me just a minute, please, ma'am, I think that covers the areas that I wanted to cover with you. Going back to what the state has some familiarity with this case, very general. You don't pay a whole lot of attention to the news.
No.
And there's nothing that you have heard, read, or seen about this case that would prevent you from being a juror who bases her decision on what happens in this courtroom combined with the law that the court gives you.
With the laws and the facts.
Correct. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Number 68, will you follow the instructions of the clerk, please? Ms. Clerk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good seeing you. State's position.
Qualified.
Defense.
Hurry on.
68 is qualified. Lawyer. You want lawyer's approach?
Yes.
Go, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeff Hellinger. It is about 20 minutes after 4 o'clock. A reminder that we will have the latest on the proceedings that have been going on for about 7 hours today, with a lunch break mixed in on our newscast coming up at 6 o'clock. Then on the 7 o'clock news with Brenda Wood, we will have Glenda Hatchett will be there, as will Bill Morrison will be with me, a well-known attorney who will be with me outside of the DeKalb County Courthouse here in Decatur. Today it has been a day of looking for jurors, and if you have been sort of dialing in and out of today's telecast, you have missed the questioning of many in the jury pool. They have about 33 right now that have qualified. Lots of questions about your availability on not only a personal level but a professional level as well. You've also heard questions as it relates to health. We also have heard questions as it relates to George Zimmerman from some African-American potential jurors, using that as a metaphor that perhaps a fair trial cannot be garnered anywhere. So that has been one of the curious aspects, certainly, of the proceedings today. Judge Gregory A. Adams has informed all of those in the courtroom that it is his hope, his wish, his desire, and his belief that the jury pool will be all set and accounted for by Thursday at 1:30 in the afternoon. What we do not know is if the evidence part of this trial will proceed on Friday or if it will be in for the weekend break and then commence on Monday. That's something we simply do not know. There are a lot of questions right now as you're taking a look at both the prosecutor and the defense attorneys are now in front of Judge Adams at the front of the bench, and sitting by herself is Andrea Sneiderman. You see attorneys Clegg and J. Tom Morgan now coming back, as well as the district attorney for DeKalb County, and we will continue with the questioning of the jurors. Again, coverage coming away at 6 on 11 Alive. Then 7 o'clock with Brenda Wood and Glenda Hatchett. I'll be here with Bill Morrison outside of the DeKalb County Courthouse. And then on the rundown at 10 o'clock on my ATL TV, WATL 36. At 11 o'clock, we, of course, will have a compendium of all of the events that have transpired on this second day of jury selection in the case against Andrea Sneiderman.
to arrange those particular jurors. I will give them similar instructions as I did with the other group as far as reporting back. This will be a stopping point for tonight, and as I indicated, and as immediately once I dismiss these groups of individuals, I need to take a brief meeting with the, I see one cameraman here, Mr. Richards, and is Mr. Petrie here? No? From WSC?
Check.
Is that him? Did I mispronounce his name?
Close enough.
The representative from WSC, okay, the one who sent the, okay. Good. So, I'll be meeting with the media in less than 8 minutes, well, maybe 10 minutes. Let me go ahead and dismiss these individuals for today, give them no instruction. I will need the lawyers to remain. Deputy Garrett, we're gonna be 3 minutes and I'll be back. This is the proceeding. So as soon as they're ready. All right.
We're not bringing it back, Judge. Assuming What's the here? No, sir. It's gonna hold Doug in there. Yes, sir. Hey, Doug. Yes, I do.
Oh, good. You're just not. Very good. Three or two.
39 or 40 is taking the elder. We still have to come back in the morning, then, I guess. Purely self-monitoring. It is. Wrap it up.
Maybe that's what we should tell the judge.
I think we should.
Just tell me, okay, that's what you're saying.
Fairly late. Stephanie, you might be staying in for me.
Like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I didn't bring a charge. Four. 4.5, I think it's 4.5.
John.
Yes, madam.
Can we address,
Well,
At home, earn money while at home. What?
can we address 87?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Beautiful thing is, she can't stay at home tomorrow until at work. She's on jury duty, telling the jury people she's at work.
You may be seated. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is an ongoing process, and we have made a determination up to this point on some of you who will be reporting back on Thursday at 1:30 to continue the jury selection process. Even the nominees that are called, you're not on the jury yet, or you're just going to be in the pool in which you actually identify and selected. But before I ask jury management to identify you, we're going to give some additional instructions that some of you still need to be questioned, along with some others who will be coming back tomorrow. And we give these instructions to everyone, although you may or may not be coming back once we do the actual jury selection. But for those who will be returning, it is very important for you not to discuss the case at this point in time or allow anyone to discuss the case with you. Obviously, you've been here a good part of the day. You have significant loved ones and people you're going to be interacting with when you leave here today, and they're going to ask, and this is human nature. At this point, just tell them you just hit the jury service, but don't go into any other details other than that at this point in time, because I don't want you to formulate any fixed opinions about anything at this point in time. Once those particular individuals are identified and certain instructions are provided to them, you'll be given certain instructions and a letter actually when they report back, and I will give you additional instructions. Now, those individuals, once you're released for the day, don't remain upon the floor, because I want you to go ahead and leave the building. I want you to interact with anyone you shouldn't interact with. Although you're wearing your particular numbers now in the jury badges, I will, at the conclusion of this presentation or interaction, ask you to remove those, because when you go outside of the building, I don't want you to interact with anyone who may try to approach you. I don't say they will, but may approach you with the media, because you will not be able to talk with them or interact with them at this level. It is very important for those who will be given the opportunity and be invited back for you not to read or look at media coverage pertaining to this case. Do not go upon the internet and do any independent research about this case. Do not blog about this case while it's ongoing. Do not go to any location that may or may not have been made reference to. All the evidence eventually will come in the form of sworn testimony from this witness stand and on any physical evidence that is introduced during the course of the trial. When I tell you to report back, if you want to bring something to snack on in or eat during the actual selection process, you may. Also, on that particular day, when you do report back, do not consume any alcoholic beverages during the lunch break prior to coming in here. And also, if I can strongly encourage you not to overindulge with any substances you utilize to relax this evening or tomorrow evening either. You're more than welcome to check your messages and on cell phones and on iPhones to make sure, obviously, you're going to stay in contact with the world, but I don't want you receiving or sending any messages that may or may not be pertaining to this case, and I don't want you expressing any opinion about this case to others or anyone of that nature. I've mentioned earlier the lawyers, the parties, the litigants, and anyone who's officially involved in this case cannot talk or interact with you about this particular case. I know sometimes you will hear me say things that sound a bit redundant about a report times and locations, but it's just important that you know where you need to report to and the time, and that you obey those rules, because the whole idea of this entire process is to make sure that a fair trial is conducted with fair and impartial jurors. That's all we're doing. And if I did not thank you, I will thank you again for your time and setting aside, because I know you came on Friday, filled out questionnaires, you've been here with me today, and some of you will have the opportunity and the privilege to come back with me on Thursday at 1:30. And I look forward to seeing some of you then and there, okay? With that said, jury management will assist me, Jay. In addition to, before Jay, can you come around this way for one other? Let's go. Come on, let's go.
Jeff Hellinger here again outside the DeKalb County Courthouse. You are watching live streaming coverage of the case against Andrea Sneiderman and jury selection, which is beginning to wrap up here on this second day. The expectation is tomorrow and Thursday we'll wrap all of this up. Judge Adams has said 1:30 on Thursday is his deadline for trying to have a seated jury of 12 jurors and 3 alternates. They are at 33 right now qualified jurors. They need to have an eventual pool of 40. There has been a lot of questions today about, whether people have a bias in this case or not, that it has received so much attention. Each and every juror has been questioned about whether he or she has been following this case and whether they have a preconceived notion of Andrea Sneiderman's either guilt or innocence. That has been a major thrust to the questioning today by the attorneys. Also the issue of personal problems, whether it's issues professional or personal that would preclude those potential jurors of serving for what could be a 2 or 3 week long court proceeding. So that is what we are monitoring right now. We are about an hour and 20 minutes away from our newscast at 6 o'clock to give you a complete update. You can also go to 11alive.com. It is there that you will be able to check out a lot of the information, and might I also suggest that you check out the tweets of our Jay Watson and Julie Wolf, as well as Paul Crawley and Doug Richards, who continue to monitor the questions and the going-ons in this high-profile case that's going on in DeKalb County. Let's go back to Judge Gregory A. Adams right now.
And you're number 68.
All right, those individuals up to 68. Individuals who are numbers 70 and higher who are still here. You're going to, because you have not been questioned yet, and I have to do something else right now, but you're going to report back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, starting at 8:30 to continue the question, okay? You're not released, so there's instructions about not discussing the case or interacting with anyone. They apply to you still, okay? You'll report back at 8:30, back in the area where you were this morning, this afternoon, excuse me, to continue, okay? Those individuals who have the letters, all right, so you go ahead and get their letters. And all those individuals who are receiving letters now from Don and jury management, you're going to report back tomorrow based on that letter so we can continue questioning. Now, like I said, we're doing it in 2 phases, and hopefully everyone understands. Okay. Don, just approach for 1 quick second.
Defense attorneys once again approaching the bench of Judge Gregory A. Adams, and we are getting toward the end of today's jury selection. As you can hear, told the jurors that are still part of the pool that will be questioned tomorrow by both sides that will commence at 9 a.m. So we will have another full day as they attempt to seat a jury. And somewhat interesting to watch Andrea Sneiderman today as well during breaks, as she has been animated, seemingly of good humor, and at various times joyous, laughing with her defense attorneys and some of those friends and family members who are also in the courtroom as well. That has been one of the interesting issues to certainly check out today. Attorney Bill Martin will be with me in about an hour and 15 minutes to give his thoughts and observations about today's activity inside the courtroom as they are trying to select a jury. Questions about George Zimmerman and race certainly have remained at the forefront as well. It's been one of the issues that have been discussed. And I suppose, I think if you are just joining us now and looking for one of the headlines of the day, I think some people might be surprised that are not involved, at least in the legal system, on a day-to-day basis or even a week-to-week basis, that a high-profile case such as this, which has really been in the forefront of a lot of media coverage here in Atlanta and North Georgia since November of 2010, when Rusty Sneiderman was gunned down in the Dunwoody daycare parking lot, and that is people have followed this case closely, yet many of the jurors who were questioned today said they have not come to any kind of definitive conclusion about the guilt or innocence of Andrea Sneiderman. So that has certainly been one of the issues today that has gotten all of our attention. I think yesterday on the first day of jury selection, it was a question that we posed not only of Judge Glenda Hatchett with DeMarco Morgan last night at 7 o'clock, and I also had Steve Burnt, who is a well-known criminal defense attorney here in Atlanta over the last 30 years, whether you could field a jury that would remain unbiased on this subject. And we speculated about that last night. Today, there has been living proof that, indeed, that there are a significant number of people, at least in this prospective jury pool, that have not drawn any conclusions from the information that they have been able to ascertain over the last 2.5 years as it relates to the death of Rusty Sneiderman. So those are some of the issues that have certainly come to the forefront today. There was one instance where a juror said that she was a member of the same church that the district attorney attended. She said she had not seen him in church recently. That's one of the more interesting exchanges that we had heard as well. So many people were saying that it would prevent such a hardship for them to be away from not only their family, but their occupations as well, if they would be sequestered as part of this jury in the Andrea Sneiderman case. So let's go back to Judge Gregory A. Adams right now as he puts up the final wrap on day 2 of jury selection.
With the media representatives, the cameraman, Mr. Richards, and Mr. Mike Patnick.
He had to go down for a live shot.
Okay, that's fine. Who's representing WSB? Come on, that's fine. This is something, let's come on, if you don't mind.
Sure.
If we go on the record meetings, but I don't think so.
And I'm Jeff Hullinger again, outside of the courthouse here in DeKalb County in downtown Decatur, where we will be following the events, and we will be online and also on our digital channel giving you a stream of information of these proceedings, not only today and tomorrow and the next day, but also during the duration of this trial. No matter how long it may be, there has been a lot of talk today about how long this case might be. Yesterday we spoke with a couple of attorneys who had told us they believed that it would be about a week and a half. But today we heard some of the attorneys speaking and telling those in the courtroom that they believe that this will be 3 weeks from the period when evidence is first submitted. So that would be 3 weeks conceivably from this coming Monday. Again, we do not know when that evidence element of this trial will commence. We don't know if that's going to happen on Friday. We know that the jury is expected to be seated, as Judge Adams has said, by 1:30 on Thursday. So at the earliest, the trial itself with the evidence could commence on Friday, or there could be the weekend break, and then it could start on Monday. So if you're talking about 3 weeks from Monday, you're talking about a trial that may go all the way to Labor Day, and that certainly will cause some hardship with some of those jurors or prospective jurors. As of noon today, we had 30 jurors as they have been qualified, and then by about 2:30 this afternoon, we had 33, and they are trying to get to a total of 12 jurors with 3 alternates, and then you have that pool if need be. So it's a total of 40 that Judge Adams is trying to get to, and again, he said this will be in place by Thursday at 1:30. We have about 10 minutes until 5 right now, and over the course of the last 15 minutes, we have seen a lot of bantering and a lot of posturing from attorneys as they have listened to the instructions of Judge Adams inside the courtroom here at the DeKalb County Courthouse in downtown Decatur. So we are getting the final instructions as day 2 is beginning to wrap up in what has been a long and arduous path toward justice. And for many, there is the belief that justice will not be served because murder charges will not be filed against Andrea Sneiderman. They were dropped on Friday. A plea deal was offered. There is some speculation about that. Some sources have told me that a plea deal had been offered to Andrea Sneiderman of a year in jail, and that, whether true or not, has been rejected. We know that to be true. And as a result, she seeks to be exonerated in a court of law, and she is facing issues of of perjury, which in itself, if she is convicted of these charges, which will give her quite a lengthy jail term if indeed she is found guilty of obstruction of justice and she is found guilty of perjury as well. But it is her belief and the belief of her defense team that they do not want to accept any plea deal. They had sought on Friday some sort of deal with the court where they would have a delay in the proceedings of 6 months. That too was rejected, where it would begin early in 2014, and that's basically where we are today, trying to select a jury and trying to move forward to the next step in this, and that would be beginning the trial where evidence is indeed submitted by both sides. So that's where we stand. It is about 7 minutes before 5 o'clock, and the legal wrangling continues in front of Judge Adams here in the waning days of July in 2013. The murder of Rusty Sneiderman occurred in November of 2010 when he was shot after dropping off his children at the Dunwoody daycare. Emmy Newman is now serving sentence by reason of insanity. He will not be part of this trial. And we continue to see how long this will go for the remainder of the afternoon. So let's take it back inside the courtroom and Judge Adams.
All right, lawyers, we have the report times back. We'll work through that. I did have a brief off-record conversation with the media about a concern that the citizen relayed in, and they will address those issues, and about microphone issues. Anything else from the state for today?
Nothing from the state.
Anything else from the defense?
Yeah, well, I'd just like to let the record reflect that the court allowed me to sit in and listen to the court's discussion with the media at that time.
I did, and I did not prevent Mr. James and anybody else from coming up.
Yes, sir.
So, yes, sir, Mr. James.
Out of an abundance of caution, it's on the record, the court indicated that he would excuse juror number 87, who was an employee in our office, and I just want to put that on the record.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Any objections from the defense?
We concur, Your Honor.
All right, and I did let Jay go, but I had given her the information that Jay would not have to report back tomorrow. And I indicate, excuse me, I'm sorry, Belcher. We will bring in additional jurors. We have ample supplies, and we will keep going until we get a sufficient number. All right. We're at recess. All right.
I tell you what. And I'm Jeff Hellinger once again outside the DeKalb County Courthouse in downtown Decatur, and that is it. The court is now in recess for the day, and they will fire up again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Again, at last count, 33 qualified jurors. They are looking for a total of 40. They will seat 12 with 3 alternates, and right now everything is in place as far as Judge Adams goes to try and have this deadline of Thursday at 1:30 to have a jury seated again. One of the headlines of today is trying to figure out if indeed the trial will then commence on Friday or if it will follow through on Monday. So those are the proceedings. We will have updates for you coming up in about an hour on 11 Alive. We will have Judge Hatchett along with DeMarco Morgan from our studio at 7 o'clock, and then Bill Morrison, the defense attorney, and I will be here outside the DeKalb County Courthouse with some thoughts and some analysis work from Mr. Morrison. That will be at 7 o'clock. Then at 10 on the rundown at my ATL TV, we will have the latest as well as 11 Alive at 11 o'clock. If you missed any of the proceedings today and you are wondering what exactly transpired, I have a couple of suggestions for you. One is to check out social media, Twitter, 11 Alive, as well as Facebook, and 11alive.com. There is a section of Andrea Sneiderman where you can get a lot of the analysis that we have done, some of the pieces as well as leading up to this, as well as some of the latest information. And also I suggest that if you go on Twitter, check out Jay Watson, also Julie Wolfe, Doug Richards, and Paul Crawley all have been busily tweeting from the courthouse today. So that is the latest. We will see you coming up in about 60 minutes on 11 Alive. And until then, I'm Jeff Hullinger. Have a great evening, everyone.